I'm your host, Erin Groves, and this is where your positivity journey starts. Welcome to the Pop Podcast. Hey, guys, and welcome back to the Pop Podcast. I am your host, Erin, and everyone's favorite guest host is also on, Mike in Florida. Say hello.
Hello.
Welcome back once again. We're going to have to add his name into the bio here soon. And Mike so generously introduced me to another one of his good friends that we have on the podcast today. And he's going to do a full introduction, but just high level, his name is Ron Taylor, and he has owned and franchised a few edible arrangements throughout Ohio. So without further ado, Ron Taylor is on the Pop Podcast. Introduce yourself. Who are you?
Well, I am Ron Taylor, originally from West Virginia, relocated to Ohio. That's how I got to meet Mike, is when I relocated for a job in the pharmaceutical industry. Did that for, had an extensive background in food service before I did that. And then did about 9 or 10 years in the pharmaceutical industry. While we were doing that, my wife and I started edible arrangements, franchise locations here in Ohio, got to about 3 of those, went out on our own. At one time, had 8 of them in 3 different states. While we were doing that, we decided we would add some fast casual restaurants to our repertoire called the Simple Greek. So we had 3 of those. So we had 11 total businesses all at one time, of which we've divested of some, kept some, added some more, done a couple different things. But I mean, essentially, long story short, most of my career has been in some sort of food service type of industry, again, except for about a 9-year stint in pharmaceuticals, where that's kind of how I got to know Mike and learned through Mike some of the school of hard knocks and how you just got to kind of gut it out and try some different things and do that. So that's, part of the way that kind of ended up here with where we're at right now with 5 edible arrangements locations and 3 Simple Greeks that will no longer belong to me as of October the 4th, because they will sell to another company. And then, we'll go from there and see what's next.
Yeah, I'll give you some background on Ron and I. I mean, we enjoyed the early part of our career, but kind of slowly ended up kind of at the same place, where towards the end we're sitting around going, I'm not sure this is for us. How do we get stuck here so long? Are we ever going to leave? And I think eventually, and I'll tell you, Ron's a lot smarter than I am. He graduated college with honors, probably a numbers guy, but he's got quite a personality too. We would sit around and just kind of go, I think we were so much smarter. Why are we still here? And then eventually we just had to say, okay, if we think we're so smart, we're going to have to go out and prove it, because right now people are getting promoted faster than us that we aren't real excited about. We're starting to take orders from people. So by the time we were divisional/regional managers, for a few years, we were ready to go. I mean, we had a guy from Duke, I think, that was, your counterpart. We liked him, but I mean, there are some pretty smart guys in the room, but there was also some guys that were definitely, and girls for that matter, that we kind of questioned, are these the ones that we're supposed to be taking direction from?
Yeah, there was an area business director that worked for us. I mean, and there was only 6 of those in the United States. I wouldn't let that guy be a delivery driver at Edible Arrangements.
We'll leave him unnamed.
No, I'm not going to say his name. No way.
That may have been, that was probably the deciding, the push for both of us.
Yeah.
I think I left first and you were shortly thereafter.
Yeah, not far behind.
That 2 years with him.
Oh, man. The corporate world. So on a little more serious note, why did you make the switch? You kind of just touched on it, taking orders from other people, but starting from the beginning, was entrepreneurship something that you had in mind throughout college and while you were working, or was it something that you started to think on and ponder on as you went through the corporate world and just realized maybe this is not for me?
Well, it's weird, right? Because my dad was in business for himself, right? Like my dad owned restaurants and I worked for my dad. And I was always working for my dad in restaurants. And I kind of saw everything that he went through and how like he was kind of always on call. And we owned a catering business. My dad would go to work at 4:30 in the morning and not get home until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I worked for him. I would work 70 hours a week in the summertime. And, I was like, I was in high school, so I saw how hard it was. And I remember specifically saying like, man, I just want like a job where I can work 9 to 5 and go home and I can shut it down. And like, I want a corporate job because this is too hard and blah, blah, blah. And I remember specifically saying that to other people and things of that nature. So, accounting degree, got a job with a Big Six accounting firm. I lasted 9 months. Mike was right. I was fortunate. I graduated within the top 1% of my college class. I was good in the books. I mean, that was a strong suit for me. And then I got that job and it was terrible. Like it was awful. I lasted 9 months. I went back to working in the food service industry, which was brutal. But I did a lot of different things in and around food service and franchising. And then I fought the urge to do any type of thing or go out on my own because, again, I didn't want to be always at work until I realized I was working really, really hard and making all the people above me more money than me. And I felt like I was smarter than they were. Or, like, I'm like, why am I putting in all this effort when I'm not reaping any of those rewards? Right. So, and Mike and I had many, late cocktail at a meeting in Arizona or somewhere else, looking at each other being like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing, so finally we just had to get to the point where we were going to pull the trigger. And before I did it, before I left the pharma industry, I bet you I had 30 conversations with my accountant, making sure that I could make okay money because I was such a chicken about the whole thing. And the thing that I didn't realize at the time was how much more dramatic the business was going to operate effectively when I committed to it full time, right? Because I had kind of 1 foot in and 1 foot out. We started 3 of the businesses and I wanted the security of that salary. But then, when I finally pulled the trigger, I remember clearly the day when I finally decided. I came home from a ride along and I got chewed on by a dude who was like 10 years younger than me and not impressive, right? But he was just harping in my ear all day about how terrible I was at my job. And I was complaining to my wife and she turns around from the kitchen sink and goes, just effing quit. I don't care. We'll figure it out. Quit. Because I'm tired of listening to you complain. And I'm like, I resigned the next day. Like the very next day, I was like, okay, I'm out. And, it was like the business went like this, like literally once I was there every day and I was fully invested with all the employees and understanding the operations and everything. And I didn't come in like some sort of CEO at Edible Arrangements. I mean, literally the first year I made the baskets, like I dipped the chocolate, like I delivered arrangement, like I was just an employee. Because I didn't think I could run it the right way unless I understood like the bones of the business and how it did it. But it was just finally taking that leap. And luckily, like, and I bet Mike has the same thing. I have an incredibly supportive spouse who, has nothing but the utmost confidence in me. And, and that was pretty much the only one because my parents thought I was crazy. That I was leaving this 6-figure income, steady job. They're a different generation, right? Like, oh, collect your check, So my dad was all about it. My mom thought I was nuts because my dad owned restaurants and everything like that. But, when you just finally commit, and I think that's where Mike and I finally got to, right? We were like, we just have to commit and figure out. And in all honesty, hindsight being 2020, if I'd have known what I know now, I would have done it a lot sooner. Because what you start to realize is the failures that you have, and I've had several, they really don't set you back as far as you think you are. You're not out on the street homeless or anything ridiculous like that. Like as long as you just don't make a complete bonehead move, all-time bonehead, you're fine. you'll sort through it. You'll get through it. So I wish I would have done it sooner, but this is where we're at, and it's been okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ron and you'll hear a lot of those, common themes. The transition was difficult because for both of us, it was late, kind of after marriage, kids. But also, boy, you scale. And once you get into it full time, you have no idea, how quickly you can have that success compared to when it's kind of your side hustle or something that you're thinking about, in your off hours.
Yeah, which it's funny because a lot of the things you just said, Mike said to me multiple times. And I always ask 2-part questions, but the first is, so when you left pharmaceuticals, were you going into Simple Greek? Is that what you first started, or was it Edible Arrangements? And then why did you go into that vertical? So what was your initial, I'm frustrated at work, but this was your passion, or kind of why did you want to go that direction?
Well, I was really familiar with franchising, right? Before I was in pharmaceuticals, my job was I was the director of food service for a convenience store chain. And we had Arby's, Steak Escape, Taco Bell, Godfather's Pizza, Baskin Robbins, and Subways. And I oversaw all of it. I had 40 locations, probably about 100 plus employees. And I was their director of food service. And I was the only guy in that company that knew anything about food, because those are oil and gas guys, right? They know what the cigarette margins are. They didn't know anything about sandwiches or pizza or anything like that. So I got real familiar because I trained in all these concepts. I mean, one of the best days of my life was driving around in DeLuca's limo, drinking beers with him. He's founder of Subway, and he passed away relatively young. And I got to hang out with him at training. So that, there were things that I got exposed to. It was really interesting. So when I was working in pharmaceuticals, I knew that franchising was a really good area for me. Right. And Mike and I used to talk about this a lot. And this was something that I thought Mike did a good job when I first got into the industry of kind of mentoring me in. Erin, because I know he's kind of mentored you. He did the same thing for me, because I was very green when I came in to the industry. And it was look, man, just be self-aware, right? That's what he would tell me all the time. Just understand what you're good at and understand what you're not good at, and try to find where it is and understand what you're good. And I'm good at being told what to do, right? Give me kind of this framework of what to work within. And then I'll take that and I'll drive it, right? Because as a franchisee, I'm not a marketing dude. I don't know how to come up with a marketing strategy, but I can take the marketing strategy of the franchise and I can max it out, right? That's something that I felt like I was really good at. So that's why I picked franchising. Okay. And I picked Edible Arrangements because it gave me the opportunity to kind of pursue that entrepreneurial avenue. But it wasn't nights and weekends. I mean, the stores open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, 9 to 3 on Saturday, and we were closed on Sunday. So I'm okay, this is much better than a restaurant that's open till 10 o'clock at night. And at the time, there were only probably 10 or 12 stores open in the state of Ohio. So I'm I'm going to open one in Youngstown. And everybody's man, are you crazy? Youngstown stinks. And I'm my town I grew up in has 2 stoplights. Youngstown has a Best Buy. I'm okay here. So ignorance was a little bliss in that, right? So that I didn't know. So that's why I did Edible Arrangements first, and I did franchising and Edible Arrangements because it was a lot of what I really knew and understood, but it didn't come with quite the level of headaches that full-blown food service really did.
Yeah.
That was a great point.
Yeah. And a question on that. So for everyone out there listening, and maybe you're out there franchising is something that I, thought about going down that route. Will you just give a high level of the different, I know you walked me through this, of the different types of franchising and the ownership behind that, just for the listeners out there?
Yeah, there's a lot of different franchise models out there. I mean, people think that it's only food service. That's not the case. I mean, there are a ton of there's home healthcare franchising. There's, you've heard it on, radio, Blinds and things of that nature, where you can buy franchise models where they're going to give you kind of the framework. And what's great about franchising is, a lot of people think immediately, well, they take a percentage right off the top. a lot of times the percentage they take off the top, they're saving you that in cost of goods because of their buying power and their supply chain. Like if you're going to start a restaurant, like where do you go get the box at? Where you go put it in? Where you go get the bag? What size does the bag need to be? Is it a round bowl? Is it a square bowl? I mean, there's a million decisions to make in a restaurant that franchising saves you all that trouble. So they get a fee for a reason. I've never, ever, ever begrudged any franchise I've worked with their fees because they're there for a reason. So you've got all these different ways of franchising, like different concepts. Food service is what I'm most familiar with, and people always love to bring up Chick-fil-A, like that's their favorite, right?
I was going to say that.
The line's like wrapped around the building 7 times. It totally different model than what like you're used to. Like if you want to be full-blown entrepreneur, first of all, it doesn't cost you a lot of upfront money. But they take 8% of your gross and 50% of your net, but they absorb all the debt service. They build the building and it is a rigorous, you would be in the queue for about a year to be a franchisee. And if you get the store, you probably will only get 1. If you're exceptional, you'll get 2. And I mean, exceptional. You'll get
Is there something with Chick-fil-A too, where they do you really never own the business? Okay. No. I think someone had told me at some point they had something really funny with their thing where they could take it back at any time or something along those lines.
Correct. And if you're an owner operator, and when I say owner operator, like you're making chicken every day, like you're there, right? You're not the guy that shows up smoking a cigar in a Suburban, like patting everybody on the back.
How's everything going?
The hard work. No, you're in uniform in the building.
Well, I think going back to your points earlier, like when you talk about, your self-awareness and what you like and what you are good at, so for somebody getting into franchising, I think what you're saying is basically, hey, listen, look at yourself, look at what you want to commit to, look at your skill set, and then look at all of the different franchises. That's how you're going to kind of navigate your way through that process of which franchise is probably right for you.
And that's why I chose Simple Greek as my second franchise, right? When I started with them, they had like 6 stores, right? So I'm like, I'm not just going to be a franchisee. I'm going to mold the direction of the brand because I'm going to be the best operator day one. Like I believe that. And what ended up happening, I eventually ended up running the entire franchise system for Marcus Lemonis.
Yeah, touch on that a little bit with your contact with Marcus Lemonis. I mean, that's got to be, pretty cool. For everybody who doesn't know, Marcus Lemonis has got a show called The Profit on MSNBC. They're showing that in schools now in substitute of your business class. I mean, my kids come home and what they did, and thank God, because there's nothing that those teachers could have shared with them than an hour watching The Profit. For all of you who haven't watched it, doesn't teach better than whoever's teaching the business class in their high school. So when they came back, I go, what do you guys do in business class? And they go, we watched The Profit. I'm like, oh my God, thank God these schools are finally getting it. Throw Shark Tank on in the morning and The Profit on the afternoon and send my kid home. He doesn't need any more information.
Yeah, that was, like I said, I signed up for that, Erin, specifically because, again, like now I'm 10 or 12 years into being a franchisee. Like I feel like I understand the model. I've got an extensive background in food service. I mean, I ran a Cracker Barrel. Like if you can run a Cracker Barrel, you can run any restaurant in the world. Like if you can do 3 shifts and you can do bacon and eggs, you can do anything. I don't care. Like if you want boot camp for the restaurant industry, just go be a manager at a Cracker Barrel. You'll be able to run a restaurant, any restaurant in the world. You'll be perfectly fine. So I had an extensive background, and I'm like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to help shape the brand. I'm going to be the best franchisee and I'm going to shape the brand. So the first store I opened, biggest first week opening in the history of the brand, $56,000 we did in Boardman the first week we were open. We had to rewrite the recipe book on the fly because the stuff that they were doing was only for stores that did like $22,000, $23,000, $24,000. We were doubling that. So we literally were changing the recipe book as we were open, things like that. So some of that got Marcus's attention because Marcus was the main person driving the force behind that. And he's also the primary, he's the majority stakeholder in Camping World, which is why he's a billionaire because it's publicly traded. And so we had a good relationship with the brand, and the brand wasn't really operating at the level which he wanted. He wasn't happy with it. So he decided to change direction, and he literally called me. I'm in my basement and it's him, and I answer, and he was like, I want you to take over the entire operation. I want you to run the franchise system. So
crazy.
It kind of worked out exactly. I didn't think I'd end up running the system. I thought I'd be like a consultant, or I'd have a part-time corporate job for them or something to kind of help steer the direction of the brand, like in operations or something like that. And then I ended up as kind of, I guess you would call me the CEO, although I've never called myself that because I sound ridiculous saying it out loud. But,
that's going to be your new nickname from now on. I'll put you in my phone as CEO.
Great. Perfect. My favorite. I can barely spell it. So, it's been great. And my relationship with him has been great. Right. So it's opened a lot of doors and opportunities to kind of get to know him and work, on some other projects with him. We've got some projects coming up in the future because eventually I ran the brand for a little while and I sold the entire brand, because the best thing for the franchisees were to put them in the hands of a larger franchise organization. A company named WowWorks bought them. WowWorks owns SaladWorks, Fruitables, Garbanzo Mediterranean Fresh, and now The Simple Greek. And they're getting ready to acquire another company, although they haven't let the cat out of the bag as to what that company is. So I kind of got the ship stabilized a little bit. We sold it. And now we're looking for other projects. But again, I think every time, back to the original question of, I just tried to find things that really fit and suited my personality style. Back to Chick-fil-A, if you're highly, highly risk averse, they might be a great choice for you. Like if you don't mind hard work, you just you don't have capital, or you don't want to put your capital at risk, they might be a great choice for you. If you want to be the guy in charge who, eventually can grow your business to where you're not working in your business, you're working on your business, they're not a good choice for you. You got to look and find, and there are thousands of franchises out there to fit whatever it is based on your ability to evaluate your own skill set and what drives you. And you can find a home.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
And on that, I want to go a step further on the how. So I think the thing that stood out to me is podcast for the reason, but your mindset of like, you believed that you could and you did. So from taking that self-awareness of the things that in your mindset, how did you, I know you haven't touched on this, but become the #1 edible arrangements franchise in the country, and then take the Simple Greek and branding to where it was? Mindset is one part of it, but how did you really just amp things up and get there?
Well, obviously my dad was in business for himself, right? So I thought he was going to be just this fountain of knowledge, right? When I started my own business. And he was 100% useless. He was.
Sorry, Dad.
I love my dad. He's great, right? He's the best and he's my biggest fan. But he opened these business in West Virginia, man. You didn't need permits. You could just build things however you wanted to. I'm like, I go in to build my first store and I'm like, what do you need? I need what are architectural drawings? You know what I'm saying? I know. And my dad, I'm like, Dad, I need architectural drawings. He's like, just draw it on some graph paper.
That doesn't cut it.
You'll be fine.
I can't do that. Right. So the good news for me is, I've never really been afraid to ask a lot of questions, right? So when it comes to the how, right? I mean, I'm very much, and I think Mike is very much of this mindset too, is stop thinking about it and just start doing it. You just got to go do it. And if you're doing it yourself, it's not really costing you a lot of money or anything like that. I think that's the thing that scares people about business and anything like that. It's you're going to lose tons of money. At first, the most thing you're going to lose probably your time, right? But when you're just getting started, your time ain't that valuable. My time's really valuable now. Back then, it was worth about $12 an hour, right? I mean, wasn't worth that much. So, I just kept asking questions. And then what's great is as you find a guy, that guy introduces you to another guy, right? Your architect introduces you to the contractor, and the contractor introduces you to the electrician, and the electrician introduces you to the plumber. And you go through some of those guys. They don't all stick right away, but as you start to do it a little bit longer, and that's I think probably the how, right? Is now the how is I got a guy for everything. If I need a car, if I need an insurance, if I need that, I got a guy that can solve almost every problem, right? And when my employees get into trouble, the only thing they don't do, they don't reach out to me quick enough. They try to figure some stuff out when I'm like, The only value that I bring is all this, information rolling around in my head. And I can solve your problems faster for you if you just reach out to me right away, because I got guys for everything. Right. So as we worked through the how, it was just a lot of trial and error. Right. And really just kind of, I had like literally 6 high school kids did the demo for me on my first edible arrangements. Like I got 6 high school kids in there with sledgehammers and sawzalls, and we're just cutting the walls down and dragging them out and throwing them in the dumpster and just kind of figuring it out. Right. We're laying tile, grout lines are crooked. It's terrible. Nobody cares. They didn't look at the floor. It didn't matter. Right. So it was just kind of go, go, go. Like that was the mindset, was just get through it. And I think that's the thing that people hesitate with, right, is just activating and taking some and make some mistakes. Right. Like, I just like to make small mistakes, right? It's the old West Virginia adage, right? We all shoot guns in West Virginia. Everybody shoots guns. You aim small, you miss small, right? You don't aim for it's we're basketball players in my family. We don't look at the rim. We look at the tiny little itty bitty hook on the rim when we're picking out what we want to hit with the basketball. The smaller you aim, the smaller you miss. So we kind of translate that same idea to business, right? We didn't think of these big grandiose ideas at first. We just aim small and we miss small. So if we made a mistake, it wasn't like one of these tremendous setback mistakes. It was a little mistake that you would just correct it and moved on, and I made some mistakes and I cried. Like there was times when it was really frustrating. But again, we just kind of kept moving through it, and we opened the first store in Youngstown. And our first Valentine's Day, we were the busiest store in the state of Ohio for our first Valentine's Day. And we had no idea what we were doing, right? Not a clue. But I had a bunch of good people who weren't afraid. And literally, I think we worked till like 4 a.m, right? Like, and went home and slept for 2.5 hours and came back and worked the next day. And it just kind of grew from there. And the reason now that it's gotten better, and the reason that Boardman is the busiest edible arrangements in the system is without a doubt the infrastructure of human beings that I have. Mike says I'm smart. I might be smart to some degree, but I'm not as smart as those people make me look. I can tell you that. Like, they make me look much better than I am on a daily basis. And I try to take really, really good care of them.
Yeah, I think that's true in all of the companies, probably no matter what size. Certainly I understand it on a smaller scale, but the people make the business, and you can look probably for you store to store. I can look complex to complex, and see what makes one better than the other, even though a lot of times they'll tell you all kinds of, I don't want to say excuses, but reasons why theirs is different, whether their market's different or in my scenario, the buildings are different. I can look at it and go, what's glaring to me, and what they're saying may be true, but what's glaring is the difference in the people, whether it be their attitude, their work, whatever that is. But yeah, I would agree with you. You're as good as the people that you surround yourself with. And that's a pretty common theme throughout.
Like, in this era of, staffing has never been more difficult than it is right now, right? I think we all know that. That's a foregone conclusion. Yes. In my Boardman store, I have the manager's been there 13 years. The delivery driver has been there 11 years. There's a key employee that's been there 12 years. That if there's a statistic that I will peacock around, like I'll brag about a little bit, is I've got some very tenured employees. I have a regional manager who's been with me since the first day that I started. And before she worked for me, she had never had a job.
Yeah.
No job. Hadn't even worked at McDonald's, never worked anywhere. And she's still with me. That's and funny. Runs the entire enterprise like a Swiss watch, and has 4 kids. The youngest of which was 2 years old when she started with me and is graduating from high school this year. They're like my kids.
I have a similar story about my operations manager. She's been with me since day one. It was literally a Jerry Maguire moment. Like, we left a guy that I was partnered with. I had brought her over to help with that system. And literally, when I decided that this was going the direction that he had led me to believe it was going to go, it was, all right, who's with me? Nobody's coming. And then Carlin raises her hand. I'm like, we're taking the goldfish, and we were out of there. We started, we started day one, and she's been with me ever since. And yeah, her youngest is a senior now and graduating college, and it's crazy. It's been a decade or a little bit longer, actually.
It's knowing to ask, like when to ask for help. And Mike always tells me this. He's like, you're going to get to a place where you need to focus on the things that you're good at. And I kind of goes back to being self-aware. And that's something that, I know the things that I'm good at. I'm still kind of growing into that, but then it's outsourcing. So in failures too, I think is another thing that you touched on, which when you're opening up a business, and I deal with this all the time with the podcast, and I've talked with Mike about this, is like, what if this happens? What if it doesn't go this direction? And he's like, then you're just going to figure out something else. Like it's just putting one foot in front of the other. And we say this on every single episode, just keep doing and stop thinking as much on it, which is something that I've learned is just, you can kind of throw a bunch of stuff at a wall, see what sticks. If it fails, keep moving forward. So,
yeah. Well, and it's also, one of the things that we talk on the last is just like he and Ron touched on is just, it's okay to be afraid. Right. But I think you posted a quote along these lines, but it's not okay to stop. Right. It's okay. And I think when you start down any of these paths, whether it was the way I did it, what you're doing, Erin, or, what Ron did, there's lots of moments where you stop and you're like, this part, whatever this is going on is terrifying to me right now. And everything in your body is saying, you probably can't do this, or it's not going to work, and it's okay to have those feelings. You just got to keep moving forward. And I know some of this stuff is cliche, but you hope that if people are thinking about doing something for themselves or breaking out on their own or whatever it is, you hear it enough from enough people, you can go, okay, this has happened for a lot of people. It's not just, a quote on a quote board that says, live, laugh, love, which none of us need, by the way.
Well, it's like a Progressive commercial, right? You don't need that pillow. Right? That's the best. So yeah, I again, like there's been failures, right? Edible Arrangements, 2018, 2019, two of the worst years I've ever had at Edible Arrangements, right? So, when we started seeing things, that was part of the reason that we started The Simple Greek, is because, I didn't trust that, I started in 2006, we'd had 10 years of consecutive growth. You're not going to keep growing. Like, you got to be realistic about what, and I think that's what kind of separates people that don't have as many setbacks as some people that others. And I think Mike probably has done this too. Like, you got to start to think about, like, where are the shortfalls that you can't necessarily control, right? There are going to be some things outside, like the stock market can tank. You can't do anything about that, right? Like, if you're heavily invested, you got to figure out a way, like, how can you absorb those losses, right? So 18 and 19 were the two worst years of Edible Arrangements in a really long time, but I sold two of my Pittsburgh stores for a formidable amount of money and was able to take the proceeds from those sales and basically pay off all my debt service. So I didn't need to make a lot of money in 18 and 19, right? So because I was running thin right now. Then the pandemic hit and my business went like this. It wasn't even like 80, it was like 90 degrees. When the pandemic hit and nobody could go anywhere and everybody was trying to figure out how to get their products to people, and we'd already mastered delivery because we are masters of delivery, it was off the charts busy for me. I had two stores that's it's craysy.
Yeah, those are fantastic points because it's both sides, right? So as you're moving in these directions, and you can never foresee it, you just can't. You couldn't foresee. You might be able to foresee, growth slowing or something like that, but you're probably not going to foresee your two worst years. And then you're certainly not going to foresee COVID and the fact that what may have been tragic for some businesses shoots you straight to the moon because you're in the right, business. But the fact of the matter is that you navigate through the negatives, you enjoy the positives, but if you're never doing anything other than, your 9 to 5 or whatever, you don't have the ability to enjoy those rides. And I think, that's something that maybe I didn't realize before I had started, but looking back now, I just wouldn't trade that for anything. Yes, you have some stressors and things like that, but the freedom that you enjoy and, enjoying, getting both the positive and negatives, navigating through and enjoying the things that you didn't see coming that, make for huge successes. I mean, when real estate goes down, I'll be in a situation where I'll really be able to take advantage of it because I'm already in that business. I'll be able to pick up much bigger multifamilies than I have ever, in the past. Whereas if I never started moving, in this direction, that would have never been an opportunity for me.
Yeah. And like what I liked about what we did the most is, we have core values, right? Like we have core values that we live by in our organization. Number one is like, if it's worth doing with wow, right? Like our job is to blow away the guests. Like we got to blow you away. Number two, which I think might be actually the most important, is change is constant. Get used to it. Ooh, because most people aren't very comfortable with change, right? They're not, right? And I'm kind of like, throw it at me, right? Like, what do you got? So, and we never changed how we did things, right? Even though the environment was changing, we focused on our teams, and like, I didn't stop paying out bonuses. I didn't stop doing, like I kept that team intact through the lean years. And so when our business rocket ship took off at COVID, those people were still there. And so I could take advantage of that. Like while other franchisees in the country, quite frankly, were scrambling because they didn't have human beings. They didn't have any human capital because they'd just gone through 2 of their lean years. What they did wasn't wrong. It wasn't wrong. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But we stayed kind of true to what our core values were, right, throughout the entire thing. And that's how we got to core value number 7, which success isn't a goal, it's a byproduct, right? Like that's what we try to get all the employees to recite all the time. Like you can't set a goal of saying, I'm going to be successful. Like who isn't setting that goal? Like that's right.
You'd be shocked. I'm just kidding.
Right. It's a byproduct of all the other things that you do. The success is the byproduct of how you execute. Do you care about every order? Do you deal with the complaints? Because you're going to make mistakes, like all these different things that you do. So we are constantly like on them about the core values, about like, hey, look, it's not just this cool sign up on the wall. Like we want to live this. Like this is how we want to operate.
Rod, those are great business lessons. I mean, and just, you basically said, do the right thing, right? When you keep your employees through a time when it's struggle, when you have the opportunity to say, well, we're going to pay you, a portion, or we're not going to be able to bonus because, COVID or lean times or whatever the case may be. But, if you have the ability, right? Like you said, it's not wrong. If you have the ability to do it and you choose not to, be prepared for the consequences on the backside when things get better. Like you said, you got no employees, or they decide to stay home and take unemployment because they can make more money doing that, whatever the case may be. But if you're doing the right thing, you're going to have long-term employees, and you're going to have people, through the difficult times that stay with you because you're committed to them, they're committed to you. And this goes back to kind of what we talked about on our last podcast, which was just relationship first. You do the relationships first, you treat people right, on the flip side, success follows. You focus too much on the end, on the success, and not enough on the relationship. Those people leave. Success, seems like it just can't be achieved. Sometimes you can't figure out why, but what you tell people is, go back to your relationship, see what you did wrong there. You'll probably figure out why you missed, your goal, whatever that was for you.
And there was a lesson born in the pharmaceutical industry that Mike had to, knock me around a little bit with. He's like, I don't care how good you sell off of that clinical trial. Like at the end of the day, people buy from people they like. Yes. You're right. And he's like, they can indoctrinate you to believe that this information that you're selling is wonderful, but they all work, right? They're all FDA approved. Like, let's not get off the range with that kind of thing. And when you're young and coming into it, I was only in the industry 18 months when I got promoted, right? So I was still like,
deer in headlights.
Yeah. I was
really corporation. They got big, rah-rah meetings. They're telling you all these things. For a while, and then you're like, wait a second. It kind of feels like King talking to the minions down here after you've been sitting in that crowd watching these meetings for a while. It all starts to seem like Groundhog Day and sound the same. And you're like, okay, starts to dawn on you like,
right.
Yeah, they pay me pretty well. I think he makes $13 million. And yeah, I'm making six figures, but
it was great,
a lot of money. And I always
right?
said, and Ron could probably agree with this, like those were us problems, not a job problem.
Mm-hmm.
Those jobs are great, and they're great for a lot of people.
Yes.
They didn't fit for us. I mean, back to kind of self-awareness, right? There's lots of people that do that their whole life. I mean, have a successful career, and, you know, it'll be great. And they loved, you know, almost every minute of it.
Mm-hmm.
But being who we were, we felt a different way. We weren't okay with it all. We thought there was more out there. And so that's why we kind of transitioned out. So if you have those feelings and you're listening to this, I mean, maybe hone in on that and then try to narrow it down to what it is that you're really interested in, or what you know, Erin talks a lot about passion, you know, what you're passionate about. See if you can make money with that passion. And if you can't, you know, maybe there's an interest that you can make money with, and, you know, narrow it down and then get started in it. It doesn't have to be a giant risk, and then just kind of move in that direction. If you start to see some success with it, that'll be your sign to transition full time. A lot of times once you do that, it takes off like a rocket, because once you can put 100% of your time and energy into something that you have interest in or that you're passionate about, there's really no stopping you.
And when you're in those jobs, right? Like, I mean, I think the one thing Mike and I did is, even though we were in those jobs and we really wanted to be somewhere else, we didn't dismiss everything that was going on around us, right? We were still learning from what we were doing. I mean, Mike and I both had a boss. She was a female, and she was fantastic, in my opinion, because she was the one woman in my life that I could not BS. Like, I could not, like, I'd spent my whole life being able to just talk my way out of every situation, kind of talk my way around any boss, making them think that I was really good, right? I mean, my mom taught public speaking for 30 years. So like, I could wordsmith it, no problem. But she would ask me question, and then another question, and another question. And before you know it, my house of cards crap just crumbled. And what I learned from that is, like, I learned from her how to do that to people now that work for me. Yeah. Like, if it wasn't for Amy, I wouldn't know how to do that. Like, she was tremendous in that respect.
I agree. And I'll tell you, had she gotten the promotion that I think she deserved, which was regional director, area business director at the time, we would have followed her right along. I may still be in corporate. I don't know. I mean,
no question.
It was really that transition that I was like, oh shit. Like, if she's not my boss, because she protected me, you know, because I was always kind of outspoken, and, you know, they tell you what you should do, and I'd talk about why it doesn't make any sense. And then, you know, she'd always insulate me from that corporate, you know, backlash. Like, and when my little buffer went, you know, and I started getting it, you know, full force, you know, do what we say, we don't care what you think. I was like, okay, you know, I've had enough. And had she been there, you know, and I got promoted one more time, and then, you know, and this is kind of just like a life lesson. Then you make a certain amount more money, right? Now the transition's even harder. So, you know, back to kind of the transitioning into something that you have interest in or that you're passionate about when you're young. It doesn't mean you can't do it when you're older. It's just easier, you know, when you're young. And the more kind of promotion, success, money you make, the more difficult it is to leave, particularly if you're the kind of person that likes to consume, right? So now you have a house that you have to pay for, and you know, two Mercedes, you know, you have cars that you have to pay for. So now there's not all this, you know, free money laying around, you know, where you can make a transition easily and still live the same quality of life, because most people kind of step their quality of life up as their income increases. And when I look back, one of the things that I didn't do was that to a large degree, which again gave me the ability to transition, you know, out of it. You know, had I pushed myself, and there's actually a house that I almost bought, and I don't mean to ramble on here, but had I gotten that house, I probably would have stuck in that job too, because it was expensive, and I would have had to keep that job to pay the bills. Right. So thank God that didn't work out either. So there's some shit that just happens along the way that kind of leads you down the path you're supposed to go.
Yeah. And Erin, I hope people are listening to this kind of podcast, right, and looking, because there are people around, you know, I don't want to shine mine in Mike's shoes too much, but like, if you ask us for help, we'll help you. Like we want to see people, you know, young people figure it out. Like I have a young kid who he's my IT guy, right? And he came to me, like he did his first IT job for me at the Simple Greek because we couldn't get the digital menu boards to work. He was so young, his mom had to drop him off. He didn't have a driver's license. Okay. So now I've got this young kid kind of in my circle here in my vortex, and he's doing all this stuff. He's super great technology wise. And I'm like, look, this is the future of everything we do is going to be based around technology. So like, I'm like, what are you going to do next? He's like, well, I'm gonna go to college. I'm like, why? He was like, well, I'm gonna go to medical school. I'm like, do you want to save people's lives? Like, I mean, are you passionate about saving lives? And he was like, no, it's just a good living. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're gonna be $250,000 in debt. Like, I mean, you're doing right now what other people can't do. You're going to be on the operating table of their computer as opposed to their heart. And it's going to be just as important to them. I'm like, let's think about what you really want to do, right? So he kind of changed directions. He ended up being the director of IT for Simple Greek. Done it up. Long story short, fast forward today, he told his company that he's taking another job. He's 22, no degree. And they said, we'll give you equity in the company and pay you $100,000 if you'll stay.
Yeah.
And he turned it down and went to the new company.
Wow. That's
right.
It's a great story. I mean, we can get these people in our vortex and help them. Like, I want to see other people succeed. Right. I mean, that's the great thing about, and Mike can speak to this, the better off the better off you do, the more you want to just see other people do really well too. Yeah, no, 100%. I think even as a divisional manager, I felt that way, with the sales team. I mean, you wanted to, you wanted to, you were within the, confine, but, you had a chance to develop people, make them better as both people and salespeople. And, now, on this platform, it just expands it, right? You're not just limited to your sales team. Anybody that, wants to talk to you about business or real estate or, and as much about commercial leases probably as I do, just, being in that business. And one of the things that happens to a lot of people that start a business is they become, millionaire real estate owners, if they, because they own their buildings. A lot of people decide they lease them and are more focused on the business side, but it's certainly something, if it's permanent, you see it all the time. A lot of times with, even physicians, lawyers, dentists, they all bought their building when they started, and now they've got, $1 million+ in real estate just from holding their business in the building that they would have rented from someone.
Yeah. I mean, is it an accident that the most successful edible arrangements in the country right now is mine and I own the building?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
no,
it's the only drive-through in the entire system. Like, I have a drive-through window. Right. And when I told the brand that I was going to buy the building and put in a drive-through window, they're like, well, we don't have a platform for drive-through. I'm like, well, you will when I finish.
Yeah.
We figure it out.
Yeah. But I mean, there's some sort of like, I forget what the stat is. It's upwards of 90 some odd % of all multimillionaires either have real estate or are invested in real estate, so it's an asset class that, everybody should have, everybody wants to use or should use, whether it's for tax advantages or building long-term, equity/wealth. But, that's kind of a whole sidebar. I don't know how I keep coming back to real estate all the time, but maybe because it's the only thing I know anything about.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, it's interesting because I know for me, Mike and I first met, he was the owner of my bar. And I would say the one thing too that I really admired about him was that he was always open to feedback and always open to learning. And it's just so, from someone that's, 25, wants to be an entrepreneur, wants to take that next step, like is trying those things every day. You kind of put people like you two, like CEOs of these companies, on a pedestal until you sit them down and you talk to them and you realize that they're still trying to figure it out too. Like, you guys are both, running real estate and edible, all this stuff. And like, you're still learning each and every day. I mean, you have people that are helping you, but it's just, there's so many learning lessons. And, for me personally, that's why I've become so passionate about this platform, is because you have conversations like this and you realize that they're just normal people with a passion and a drive. And to kind of touch on the corporate, that's definitely something that I talk to Mike about all the time, is you can get stuck, but you get to this point where like, I'm happy because I'm in my comfort zone. I'm making money to pay the bills. I'm doing this. And I actually listened to something the other day that was like, being stuck at that kind of quote unquote good is one of the worst places to be because you're just in your comfort zone. And the most growth happens when you step out of that and you enter into a place or a direction that you're being challenged. And both of you are, a testament to you're comfortable. Things are going well. You're making big commission checks. But once you stepped out of that, your success came in tenfold. So.
Oh, and I mean, you have to if you look at people that have success early on, I think that's like job success. It's great, especially if you fit that mold. It's a detriment if you have an entrepreneurial spirit because it can get you stuck, mm-hmm. In that. You can put whatever number would make you happy. I think when you're young, you have a number and you're like, if I made that, oh my God, that would be it. Like call it 250, whatever the number is, right? And that's if you like corporations and you like your work or whatever it is, and then that's great. If you're an entrepreneur or you have that spirit, it can keep you stuck there, forever. Just to kind of touch on what you're talking about as far as, getting stuck in corporate. And then as far as people that you want to talk to, I mean, I would ask anybody questions. I mean, Ron could probably attest to this. Like, I don't feel any older than I did when I was, since I was probably 28, 30. I mean, we're really just kids pretending to be adults up here. And once you start talking to us, you figure it out pretty quickly. The only thing we've had is just more experiences. So we know things from, experiencing it, but you don't feel that much different. You do feel, I mean, I feel a lot of times, when people come to me and start asking me questions, oh, you did this. I mean, I feel like I'm pretending to be a grown up. It's almost laughable.
I feel like a kid all the time, right? And then I'll get into a conversation and I'll have somebody ask me about starting a business and I'll start rolling them through the permitting process and everything that they got to do and da-da-da-da-da. And I have one of those, remember in old school where he's talking on stage against Carvel and he blacks out and says all this stuff. And then he wakes up and he doesn't realize it was the most eloquent thing. It was the perfect answer. And you're like, man, I know a lot of stuff that I give myself credit for, right? Yeah. So, but it's only when you have those aha moments. Other than that, what I'm doing? I'm playing basketball in the mornings with my buddies every day, and then I'm drinking beers and watching a game. Just a kid. I don't feel that grown up. And I mean, and as far as feedback, Mike giving you this feedback, and you're talking to him like you're a regular guy. I mean, I attribute a lot of my ability to absorb critical feedback without getting my feelings hurt because of Mike and what we called airing of the grievances at meetings.
Oh gosh.
Right. And we would just wreck each other. I mean, it was rough, bam. Right. So, but, and I mean, I can vividly remember sitting in the JW Marriott in my first time in Arizona and just getting killed, and the greatest thing about it is it was one of those aha moments where brother, you are not as cool as you think you are just because you got promoted at this company.
Presentation sucked.
Because they were so damn desperate for staff and you just happened to be able to, you had a good day in an interview. That's the only reason you're here.
You had a good day in an interview and you lived in the right geography.
You'll live in Youngstown, so we'll take it.
But that presentation that you just gave was terrible, so don't think it was so great.
Yeah, awful. Didn't make any sense. So, I mean, that was, and we did that to each other, right? And I think the people that could really take that and digest it, a lot of us went a different direction. The people who really got their feelings hurt, maybe cried a little bit.
Went back to their rooms.
Yeah, they weren't built for it, right? And again, that's nothing wrong with that. You just got to know what you know and know what you don't know and find that sweet spot. But for me and Mike, I mean, it was us being hard on one another. We were hard on one another. And looking back at it, it was really, really good for me, right? Because although I do still feel like a kid, the one thing I can tell you that's much different in my mid 40s as opposed to my mid 30s is I know that I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. I knew everything in my 30s. I was a genius. Yeah. Now I'm not. I like you said, I'm learning every day. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to be in and around the room of other people that I can learn from and just listen and pay attention. And then when I'm around other people that want to listen, I try to give them fair and balanced advice.
the older we get, the less we're sure about.
Yeah, no doubt.
Mike always says that Mike, what's your famous quote? Like the people that think that they know it all.
Oh yeah.
Are the people
have no way of finding out they don't.
Yeah, have no way of finding out.
Yeah.
And I think
those who think they know it all have no way of finding out they don't.
Yeah.
Which is so, and the thing is that you do find a lot of leaders, and I'm not bashing corporate, but most leaders that I think have that mindset are in the corporate world. I've met so many entrepreneurs that are always willing and want to give people the time of day and want to say, I did this, and this. I mean, I interview guys all the time, and I'm always trying to set up new interviews. And I think there's always been, helping, serving, learning want from them, and they want to give that advice. I mean, that's why you're on the podcast. And Ron, from your perspective, when you were starting and, building and ramping up edible arrangements, I think it can be overwhelming. And I know for me personally, I'm going to use myself as a guinea pig. There's so many things you can do. How did you, from your day to day, was it, I'm going to do one thing that moves the needle, 3 things? How did you kind of go into each day with a plan, or what was your mindset around building it in growth? I think we lost.
Well, again, since I was working inside of the framework of a franchise, right, they were giving me a lot of tools. So I really just tried to use the tools, right? And then a lot of your business success, in my opinion, is built on the very front end before you start, right? Like I found 1,118 square feet that I could rent for $900 a month, right? I did the demolition and the painting with a crew of high school kids that I could pay $8 an hour cash and pizza, right? So I didn't, when I went to apply for the loan, the bank was like, you're going to need $300,000 to build out the store. And I was like, there's no way and I ended up building it for $200,000. And I had $100,000 in cash left over that I just had in the bank that unfortunately at the time I was paying 10.5% interest on because interest rates were really high back in 2006. But I think I front loaded it, right? My goal was to front load it and minimize my expenses so that I didn't have to do $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 a day in sales, right? Because I was doing the very basic math. I was on a road where 40,000 cars a day drove by the store. I needed to do $700 a day. So I only needed 0.1% of those cars to stop. That was how simple the math was for me, right? Like, how do I do this and keep it simple so that I can start small and then just go every day and do the right thing at the right time for the right reason, right? That's kind of one of the mantras that we give the employees all the time. Like, guest complaint, right thing, right time, right reason. Like special request, just think about right thing, right time, right reason. Like just do that. Tell the kids the same thing. My kids would be able to repeat that if they were on a podcast. They were like, yeah, this is the thing my dad says. And it drives me crazy. That's all he talks about. So, I think ramping it up and getting ready was if you're, getting in at the right number and being patient, like getting in without getting too anxious and overgrowing right from the get-go, right? Kind of aim small, miss small. And then the other thing is you have to do this as a franchisee. I cannot emphasize this enough. You have to trust the franchise process. If you don't want to trust somebody else's process, go hang your own shingle and start your own business. Start Ron's Fruit Baskets, start Joe's Hot Dogs, right? Like if you are going to be a franchisee, you have to do what so many people want to get into franchising and then go, I think this recipe is terrible. Then why did you sign up to be a franchisee? Yeah. Right? No, this is the way we make we had this a lot, the simple Greek, like we make the tzatziki sauce this way. If you didn't like it, then you should have started your own Greek restaurant. Like this is how we do it. If you don't want to trust that process, right, then don't do it. Like that is the classic mistake. And that's what burns out franchisees, in my opinion, the fastest is they want to fight the brand. Why did you write them a $30,000 check and give them 5% of your money if you don't want to listen to what it is that they have to say?
Because they know it all.
I think that's a great point. And I think that makes it a little different from kind of what I do and even Erin, what you're doing, where I would say like more from like 10,000 feet. Like for me, it was growth, right? So I had to wake up every morning and figure out what I wanted to do that was most important for growth and make sure that I did that first and did that every day before I got caught up in a bunch of nonsense that would take me, down a path of busyness, but not, efficiency or growth. And, that is hard to do without any kind of, structure. Now you can look at other real estate and other real estate companies. Erin, you can probably speak to looking at other podcasts and things like that. But, like for you, Erin, you probably have to figure out, okay, what would grow the podcast? Okay, I need to wake up this morning and do, X, Y, Z, reel, post, whatever. For me, it was, okay, I need to get my list of properties. I need to, I would drive by them, then I would, price them. I put these little models together of, what would make sense. And then I make offers, that was kind of my process. So, I think that's a great point, especially if someone's specifically looking into, franchising. That's going to be so important.
That's one of the hardest things that I've struggled with personally. And I know I've talked with Mike about this, is just there's so many things that you could be doing and it's easy. And I think this is one thing that I've learned in the corporate world. And Mike says, it's like, you can do a lot of things and be busy, but what did you actually accomplish? And I've had times where I've sat down and I've been so busy. And then I think back and I'm like, what did I do to actually move the needle today? Like, how am I going to generate revenue for this organization if I'm in sales? Like, did I do X, Y, and Z? And it's so true. And same thing with the podcast. Like, there's so many things you can do, but it's just starting with that one thing. So, for Ron, it was like, trying to get people to stop whatever it is. It's going to be specific to whatever you're trying to go into. But I think it's really important for everyone out there listening just to set a priority. Like, if there's one or two things and it seems so small, and for the go-getter personality me, I'm like, one or two things every day. Like, what? That doesn't sound like enough. It's going to fail. And at the end of the day, and Ron just touched on this, being patient, which I know is not an attribute I have, but from your perspective, I really don't. I mean, I struggle I think it's a mindset. Like, I'm very type A. I'm very much of a go-getter. You guys are the same way. It's hard to be patient when you know and believe in something so much.
Right. And I think it's important, whether it be in business and especially in franchising, is understanding, here's what I loved, understand the model and what it means, right? And why did I love the edible arrangements model so much, right? As my first business? Well, food, it was my wheelhouse, right? That's my comfort zone. That's my area. I knew it. I got it. But every time you buy a hamburger, you're eating it. Okay. 99% of the orders that I fulfill at edible arrangements are going to somebody else. You're buying it. Mike's getting it. If I execute flawlessly, you just paid me to market to my next guest. Most people have to spend money to acquire a customer. I can make money to acquire a client if I execute with perfection. That's why all my emphasis at Edible at the beginning, and still to this day, my complaint percentage in Youngstown is 1/100th of 1%. We don't make mistakes. And if we do, we fix them immediately because you're my next customer. I can't make a mistake for you. I'm getting paid to get you to buy from me. Who does that? I mean, it is a rare set of circumstances that edible arrangements give you. And when I try to explain that to like other franchisees, they almost they either have this aha, holy crap moment, or they're just like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Then I stop talking to them. I'm move on to the next person, but because you can't tell the person. Yeah. But you're like, don't you understand? Your guest is funding your net. They're basically customer acquisition cost negative, right? They love to talk about that on Shark Tank and all these shows and everything. My customer acquisition cost, I have customer acquisition profit.
Yeah.
All I have to do is execute without mistake. And that's why, we have a lot of Valentine's Day is our biggest day of the year, right? Biggest day of the year. I never turn off. I never shut off, right? And there are stores that will shut off for Valentine's Day on the 12th of February. They've got all the orders they can do and they don't do another one. And they're like, how come you never shut off? And I'm like, because every incremental order I fulfill is the person who's going to buy from me the following week, because it's going to be Nancy's birthday or their uncle's wife passed away, or it's going to be somebody's coming home from the hospital. Like every person you don't send to, you just lost the opportunity to acquire a new customer and make money all at the same time. How can you not prepare for that?
Yeah. That's great.
I'll do 1,000 orders in my busiest store on Valentine's Day.
Wow.
And like I run the staff into the ground, and then I pay them every minute of overtime, and then I hand out hundreds. Yeah. Because they'll know,
it's worth it.
Yeah, it's 100% worth it. Like it's crazy, right? Because I paid the rent was paid on March 8th or on February 8th, right? So I mean, all the fixed costs are done. All you're covering are the cost of the product and the cost of the labor. I mean, you're operating at like a 50% margin, and you're acquiring new people. So like the more you know about what your business is like, so Erin, maybe in your case, it is the more I post, the more people listen, the more I get. Like maybe it is just like activity, like, and some patience. Maybe it's just that. Like in edible, it's fulfilling orders and not making mistakes. In real estate, maybe for Mike, it's like having apartments that people talk highly about, because word of mouth is the best way to continue to make sure that you operate at 100% occupancy. I don't know, because I don't know that market. If I had a question about it, I'd ask Mike. But whatever it may be, just know what it is, right? Like know what it is. And then you can make sure that you function around that. So that's why all of my emphasis at edible is almost, very little for me in marketing. It's 100% operations and execution, because to me, that is the marketing. Right.
Which you can tell too. I mean, the accounting background probably helped a lot. And you hear this all the time. Mike said, like, identify who your audience is and then go after them guns blazing. And you hear that all the time. Like, who are you trying? What are they doing? How old are they? Are they male or female? Is it this? And then once you figure out that target market and where you're trying to go, it's like just press the gas and just don't stop and keep going. And it's actually, you would think that people, and it's funny when you hear your guys' advice and feedback, because it seems so, not to sound condescending, but it seems so like plain as day. Like, why would you close on February? Like the things that you're saying to me make logical sense. And Mike and I always like joke around sometimes.
Well, that's what's so funny about both of our businesses is none of it's that, and that, I don't go back to like even Lou's podcast, but the stuff that they're saying, I guess it's not difficult to understand, but maybe it's a little bit difficult to execute, but yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, I think we touched on diet, being, fit is not a difficult concept to understand. Now, the act of doing it all that's why you see fat trainers, they've got all the information. It's the execution that they lack. So yeah, none of it is, to your point, Erin, rocket science. It just, takes a little bit of consistency and effort to do it.
It's the difference between those that say that they will or say that they have this idea and the difference that do. And it's just a straight funnel. I mean, you see it, the number of people are like, oh, I want to start a podcast, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. My question is like, okay, so when are you going to do it? And Mike does this to me all the time. Like even with TikTok, I'm like, oh, I'll get it. I'll do this. And then I finally did it. It's like, you just have to go out there and do it. And once you do it and start putting the effort in and consistency and just keep going every single day, the results will come. And obviously you two are a testament to that. I'm trying to think. Failure and fear is something that I asked Lou, and I think he had a really good perspective. And it's something that I think a lot of people can resonate with, whether that's personally or professionally. And it's something that I've been asking a lot of guests. So Ron, from your perspective and your mindset, was there fear when you were leaving your job? I'm assuming the answer is yes. And then how did you mentally get around that? Or what were things that you would tell the audience on just navigating that?
Yeah, I was afraid when I left, right? Because you have payments and you have this guaranteed income that you're walking away from. Again, for me, I'll go back to, I have an incredibly supportive spouse. Like she's 100% in on everything I want to do. as long as it makes sense, right? She'll be the first one to tell me like, no, I think that's a dumbass idea, right? Like she'll also be honest with me. So like, she's not afraid to tell me the truth. But she's very supportive. And when she's on board, she's on board, right? She doesn't say she's on board and then, complain on the back end. Like when she's in, she's in. So that helps a lot. And then the other thing is like understanding the numbers, right? Like, I mean, speaking of the profit, like I'm always blown away by watching the profit and Marcus shows up and people don't know how to read their P&L or what their cost of goods are or anything like that. Like, I hedged a lot of my bets to mitigate that fear, right? Knowing full well that I only had to do $700 a day to crack, the nut that I wanted to make sure that I could pay myself enough to pay all my bills, right? I didn't go in and being like, okay, how do I become a millionaire? I'm like, the first thing is like, okay, how do I not get thrown out of my house, right? Like, how do I cross that bridge first?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then we'll go from there, right? Because you would expect it to kind of grow, like if you're doing all the right things and everything like that. And I mean, let's face facts, like performance anxiety and fear is a good thing. Right. Like that's not a bad thing. And I tell my managers that all the time. Like, if you're comfortable and I'm not making you uncomfortable, I'm not helping you. Like, you better have some performance anxiety when you show up for me every day. Like, I better make you a little uncomfortable. Like, if I walk into building and nobody like kind of scurries a little bit, chances are you probably, I'm not pushing you hard enough. Right. Like, you ought to be a little nervous when I walk in. So me being nervous every day and having that edge, I mean, there's a lot of people that tell you, have told me like, oh man, you need to relax. You need to calm down a little bit, especially in the younger years. But, I'm like Mike, I heard him on a previous podcast where he's like, I don't really have regret. He said, I do have regrets, right? Like, I mean, trust me, I regret being wound as tight as I was. I probably popped off at people, more so than I should have, when I should have kind of searched for understanding and compassion instead of just getting angry right away. But, I think that some of that performance anxiety helped make sure that, we could perform. So while I'm not necessarily, proud of some of that stuff, I mean, some of it was probably a means to an end to a certain degree, but you got to give yourself some slack as a business owner, and you got to understand that you go have some bad days. Like, you have some bad days. Don't look at it, day by day, as far as like, and you got to find some ways to compliment yourself, and you got to find some ways to hold yourself accountable. So, I did it by looking at the numbers. I've always been a numbers guy. Like, I got an accounting degree. I failed the CPA exam twice. I just knew that if I could just do this, then I could survive, and then we can go from there. Like, and I remember clearly, I'm like, we need to do 5,000 a week. And then like 3 months later, I was like, we need to do 7,000 a week. And then I was like, well, we really need to do 9,000 a week.
Keeps bumping up.
Yeah. And it never stopped. Right. Yeah. I mean, it never quit. I think the hardest thing for people to get used to and being in business is it never stops. Like you know what I mean? Like, you're never like, I'm done. Right. Like, I remember my kids used to come into the office and be like, Dad, are you done? And I'm like, I'm never done. I just decided to stop. Yeah. It's never done. Like, it goes on forever and ever and ever. Just, if you're not comfortable with that, it's going to be hard to be on your own. Right. No, but you'll have to figure out a way to kind of tamp it down and turn it off. So those were all things that I learned, right? And you learn it through listening to other people and watching videos and doing podcasts or listening to podcasts and things like that. I mean, all those things that you do, they'll make you better and better. But for me, and I would say for any franchisee, understand what do you really want to get out of this? And because if you think you're just going to open up and be a millionaire, you're crazy. Like, I've been at this for 15 years and I'm just now finally starting to feel like I'm starting to do well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I concur. I mean, there's a lot of time where you're like, oh, I'm paying the bills, I'm doing this, but like the fruits of your labor come way down the road, just the whole overnight success usually is, 15 years in the making. So, I can speak to my 2 refinances that I just did, and, those are 10 years in the making before I pull out, what I just pulled out. And, for a long time, I didn't feel like, it's just recently that, the money has come. And again, I think Ron got into the same reason I did, which is, more for the freedom. I don't think you get into it for the money. You get into it because you just don't want to do what you're doing anymore. You can't see any real light at the end of the tunnel. I always say, the weekends were the best for me. The week I hated, I could see that I was going to have the same 4 weeks of vacation. It was just, that just went through my mind. I was literally in my 30s, wishing for retirement. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to retire. Well, that's no time soon. And when you're in your 30s and all you can think about is your retirement, you're in trouble. You're wishing your life away because you just don't like what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's that. If you're looking forward to the weekend, but again, Mike speaks to it, right? Like, and it's not just the freedom, right? It is the understanding that you can do what you need to do and do what you want to do. It's probably just going to cost you money. Like every time I take off for a week, there's no way things run as well the week that I'm in the Bahamas as they do when I'm here. Yeah. They just don't, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm okay with that, right? Like that's why when you're at work, you have to drive results, right? You got to drive it a little bit better than what you want, because for that time that you want to take off, that it's going to cost you money, right? So, and the other benefit that it had for me is I've never missed anything that my kids do, right? Like that, that I would say that's probably one of the most beneficial things to me. It took me a long time to get to where I wanted to get to financially, but, I've been at more damn school functions than my parents were never at my school, like ever. I felt like I was there all the time, right? Because there was always some sort of activity, and even when I got the opportunity to run a franchise system, the one conversation I had with Marcus is like, nobody will work harder than me. I will work 70 hours a week, but on Tuesdays and Fridays from 6:45 until 8:45, I'm watching my son play basketball. I'm not taking your phone call. If that's a deal breaker for you, don't hire me. I don't care. And he was like, I'm good with that. Like that's reason. Yeah. That's not an unreasonable expectation. Like it's, that's not what it is. So those are all the things that I love about being in business. Right. But it's also like, those are some of the real upsides and stuff like that. But there's this constant misconception that it's glamorous. It ain't glamorous. Like most of it's not glamorous. Like Mike broke his foot, right? On a ladder.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What did I do day before yesterday? I literally moved equipment around and replaced a hot water tank with a guy because I didn't want to pay a plumber $4,000 to do it. Right. Like I've cleaned more toilets, unclogged more drains, like cleaned deep fryers, like degrease things. I still do it to this day, like to this very day. So it's not as glamorous as it likes to be, but it does provide you some freedom if you can get yourself to the right point.
Yeah, and from an employee standpoint, if you can show the people that work for you that you're willing to do just about any job, and in a lot of cases, worse jobs than most, you can gain a lot of respect from your employees, by doing that versus kind of that management style of just sitting up there and dictating. And then the talk and chatter behind your back is that, all he does is bark orders. He doesn't do anything, around here, or he's never around here. I know when we bought that bar, and I actually only bought it because it's on 2.5 acres that eventually will be something that someone wants to build on. But in the meantime, the bar services the debt on the property, but the basement was full of mold. And mold remediation is a huge expense. So, I bought one of those plastic suits and one of those foggy masks and went down there with stuff called concrobium and, Googled on how to do it. And, we moved everything out of there that has to do with, the business. And any HVAC, any hot water tanks, and put it all in the attic. But I was down there, scrubbing, and just an old building, so there's always moisture down there. So there's always something to do, but nobody wanted to do it. So I was like, what is it? 4 hours? All right, here we go.
Yeah. And you end up doing things like that all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was part of the rub with Mike and I in the job, right? Is like when you're working for a bunch of people that don't feel like they can execute your job as well as you can, and you're working for them, that's a hard mental hurdle to overcome. That means it's time for you to probably go. Right. Yeah. And again, like Mike said, it's not a job problem. It was a me problem. Like, I'm like, I can't live with this. Like, you can't do my job and you're making 3 times what I make. Like, what am I doing here? I got to go.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things I think to digest, and why entrepreneurship has always been. And I say that I'm like, I just don't like, I don't like to be told what to do all the time. That's one thing that I think struggle. And you see people, and again, it's not, bashing the corporate world, but you see it all the time, or you hear from people, this person's telling me to do, A, B, C, and they don't even know how to do it, which I think it's just ironic. It's the whole, I could go on a tangent about this for a long time. But I think it's all, you guys touch on a lot of good things, and I know we're kind of getting on time. So to wrap things up, I think there's a lot of takeaways here, whether you're franchising. We know Mike loves real estate, and Mike actually works hard via his last comment that he was extracting mold for everyone out there. So might contradict his last.
Are we to just revisit this on every podcast, or I'm going to have to clarify myself on the whole hard work thing?
We know Mike would rather be on his boat, but that's okay. There he is. I'm just giving you a hard time. So Ron, as we're wrapping up, if there's any last, I always like to say, if there's any other takeaways that you would advise people out there, whether it's specific to franchising or whether it's specific to business, what are 2 to 3 things that pieces of advice that you would give anyone out there listening?
One of them is something that the two of you all have already touched on all before, is like, find somebody, like if you're really interested in being in business, find somebody who does business and latch onto them. Because I got news for you. We love to talk. Like, we love to talk. We love to help. We love that. Like, and the older I get and the more, the more success I'm fortunate enough to enjoy, the more I'm less interested in doing well, and the more interested I am in helping. I want to help, right? Like, I want to, whether it's people, whether it's animals, whatever the hell, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, we want to help, right? So if you're out there and you're trying to figure out which way that you want to go, latch on to somebody and be, volunteer to spend time around them. I'd let anybody intern with me that wanted to, like anybody, and I'll talk to them till they're blue in the face and answer every question. I love talking about business. I love helping people get smarter. I love seeing people that want to learn and want to get better. So if you're interested in it, there's tons of me and Mike. There's a bunch of us, right? Latch onto those people, because we like to talk and we like to help. So that's an easy one. And just understand that it's not going to come overnight. It's really not. Like, I think that was the toughest thing, especially like because a lot of people that want to do it, right, they're athletes that performed at a high level, right? They're academic, high caliber people, right? Let's face facts. Like, how hard was high school? I could have gone 2 days a week and gotten a 4.0. Give me a break.
All right. Whoa. Someone struggled.
Well, high school's not that tough. Come on. Most of us struggled because we didn't care, right? We didn't care. Like, nobody cared. Right?
Maybe in Youngstown, Ohio. Liberty High School.
My wife struggled in high school and then graduated like cum laude from college because she finally started to care, because she was writing a check for it every semester. But just be patient, right? Like, be patient, because it really does take a long time to get to where it is that you want to be, and don't wish it away, right? I think back about it now, and I think, the journey was some of the best parts for me. Maybe I didn't enjoy it so much at the time, but like, I got to meet guys like Mike, right? And I got, and Mike and I have, that was, God Lord, how long ago was it we met?
A long time.
It's a long time ago.
15 years at least.
Right? Right. And we have a relationship where we don't talk for 6 or 8 months, and then we talk and it's interesting, right? Like, and he just took the time with me. It was probably 6 or 8 weeks ago because I'm looking at a commercial piece of real estate as I sell these businesses. And I'm like, hey, what is a cap rate? I don't know what that is. And like, and he's happy to explain it. I don't feel dumb because I don't know what it is. Like, I just ask, like, right. When people say, hey, you know anything about real estate? I'm like, no, but I got a guy. I ain't one of my guy. Like, I got an electrician. I got a plumber. You don't need to know everything. Mm-hmm. You just need to be comfortable asking and admitting that you don't know everything and knowing that it's going to take some time, right? It's just not going to come overnight. So, people talk about Amazon and stuff all the time. I mean, that guy lost money for, millions upon millions of dollars for years. And then people are mad like he doesn't pay taxes. I'm like, dude, he's still writing off the losses from 10 years ago. So that we can all order shit and get toilet paper delivered to us while we're sitting at home. Like, we don't need to go anywhere. So
he's got a similar story to you. I mean, just about how he decided on books, and the fact that it was like the biggest market that was untapped, for online. It's crazy. But, again, he did some calculations and thought, you know what, books is the way to go. And it took off. And now, God, there's nothing you can get on Amazon.
So be patient and don't fear. Don't fear slow. It's just, you got to grind it out, man. Like, it is a grind. It is an everyday grind. Right. And you don't have to feel bad if you're not like, that's something that's, it's funny. I was talking to my wife the other day. I was like, I probably need therapy because there are times when I'm like sitting on my couch and just kind of hanging out, watching TV, or like my daughter's there and not paying attention to me because she's 16. And I'm like, man, I feel like I should be doing something. And I really, no, I shouldn't. Like, I can literally just sit here. Like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, I don't have to fill every minute of the day with some sort of business function or something like that. So, it's okay to take your time, and it's okay to struggle a little bit. It's okay to get frustrated. It's okay to be mad. And then as far as like the last thing I would say is, my wheelhouse is franchising. And I would reiterate, I said it earlier, if you're going to be a franchisee, be a franchisee. Do what they tell you to do. They will give you a big playbook. You're going to sign a 196-page document that basically says you're going to do everything that they tell you to do. Just do it. Mm-hmm. Like, it works. That's why there's a whole bunch of people in the system already. Like, you do not have a better recipe for chili than the franchise does. You might like yours better, but like, this is just do what they tell you to do, whether or not it's window treatments, whether or not it's carpet cleaning, whether or not it's, edible arrangements, or if it's food service. Follow, like, if you don't want to follow the system, then go start your own business, right? Be more like Mike. Like, I'm going to get into some real estate and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to kind of create my own entity and and we're going to have our own employee handbook or whatever it may be. We're going to write our own book. That's great. Do that. But if you're going to be a franchisee, be one. Buy into it, do it, or don't do it.
Yeah. If it's not broke, don't try to fix it. You hear that one all the time. People trying to, and I even hear this at work, like trying to reinvent the wheel. It's like, just stick to what works. But
all the press they get, everything they talk about, number one store, QSR magazine, top 50, McDonald's this year. McDonald's, right? I mean, come on. Like, how many years they've been doing it? Like, I can't eat. That's not good for you. Blah, blah, blah. The pickles are too small. Whatever. Number one. They're number one. Number two, Starbucks. Number three, Chick-fil-A. Right? I mean, 4, 6, Chipotle. I mean, they all, like, these people know what they're doing. Like, they've been doing it for a long time. Yeah. So you're not smarter than their entire system. You're not.
Yeah. All good takeaways. Patience is definitely something I'm working on. It's hard to just be patient and, slow. You hit one milestone, and it's a reminder too to just appreciate along the way. Like, I just hit 1,000 downloads, and my goal for this year was 2,000. Like, I know I'm going to hit that. And it's like, I wish certain phases away, and I know I'm going to get to a certain point, and I'm going to look back and be like, I should have really enjoyed that and soaked that in and been like, you remember when it was I was at this place and I was trying to figure everything out. Like there's so many things along the way to celebrate and just appreciate, because it really truly is about the journey. And that's why, I love this platform. So,
the hardest thing is you're not going to do that though. Like, you're never
I can't believe me. You know me too well.
I mean, like, I wrap up Valentine's Day and I'm like, I just did $400,000 in business in a week. And then I'm literally like, how many orders we got on for Monday? I'm literally like, and Mike's the same way. Like, I just finished a huge refinance that's going to save me, $18,000 a month. And you know what he's thinking is, which one, what's next?
Yeah.
Like, right. I mean, that lasts for about 5 minutes. And
what's occupancy at?
What's next?
Yeah. What's occupancy?
Yeah.
On something else. Yeah.
It's a hard mentality to crack. I mean, I think that's why, I always get along with people, like Mike and like you, just because it's hard to unwire my brain. Like, you don't even realize that you're doing it. And Mike's always tells me to chill out. Like, he's just like, it'll come, this will happen, keep doing the right things and all this type of stuff. But it's hard when you're wired some way and like, this is where I want to go and there's always more. It's probably not the best way to live, but someone told me to relax. If I'm not working or sleeping, eating or working out, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm like, might as well do something else. Go teach a yoga class. Mike's like, you do way too much. So thank you so much for taking the time. Ron, thank you for being on the podcast. And the last and final question of every episode, we'll start with Mike. It's his favorite question. What are you grateful for?
It's so not something that comes naturally, to me, which I will continue to work on. But, right now I'm just grateful for the fact that, I've got friends like Ron that I can reach out to when I have questions about franchising, and also that we just keep in touch over long periods of time. And no matter how long it's been, it always feels like, we're still sitting at the JW Marriott bullshitting about our corporate jobs and what we're going to move on and do next, which I don't think either of us were sure about when we were talking about it. But, thank you, Ron, for being on the podcast.
My pleasure.
And Ron, what are you grateful for?
I mean, right now, I'd say what I'm most grateful for is like kind of future opportunities. I'm just getting ready to divest of 3 businesses. I'm going to have the least amount of businesses that I've had in quite some time. And it's funny because I've got all these people like, well, what are you going to do next? Like I'm bankrupt or something. Like I need to get a job at fast food restaurant. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, guitar lessons, right. So I'm thinking about like, I'm grateful for the opportunity to maybe do a little bit of self-enrichment, maybe to indulge in a business that isn't food service related, be able to reach out to guys that I know like Mike and maybe dabble in some real estate. Like I'm really looking forward to, it's funny, like I'm looking forward to really getting to know the staff that I have right now, because I'm a little disconnected from them because I've had so many businesses and everything like that. So the chance to reconnect with some of those people and remind them that they are my customers and they are critically important to everything that I do. Because there's some people whose names I don't even know at this juncture, right? So for me, I'm grateful for the fact that some of these businesses had sold, and it is going to give me an opportunity to reconnect with some of the people that have helped me get to the point at where I am right now, and possibly try some new things.
You're so much better at that gratitude thing than I am. That was fantastic. I'm definitely stealing future opportunities. If Erin has me back on the podcast, I'm using that one.
Yeah, call me before you're back on.
Yes. I'm calling you for the gratitude portion.
Mike says the same thing every time. And I'm like, Mike, you've done this podcast 14 times. How do you not know what the question is? It's like, you know what I mean?
But that's part of his style though, right? Like that's the authenticity about him that I love so much, right? Like I think there's nothing that I want less than if anybody described me as like disingenuous. That would probably be that would break my heart, right? Like I would be crushed if somebody said that to me. And they like that's the one thing I love about Mike is he was always like even really before I even really knew him, he was just like, "Nah, man, you suck." Like, or like, hey, he'd be like, "That was really good." Like it was honestly, it was both ends of the spectrum, right? But like that's how it is. So he's just, that's how he built. And I like that about him a lot.
Oh,
dang it.
Oh, geez. Well, thank you both for being on. And for everyone out there, thanks for tuning in. And we will talk to you next week.